1950, Volkswagen creates an icon that would define a generation. Peace signs, flower power, and a top speed that barely hit highway limits. 2025, same spirit, different animal. 335 electrified horsepower and all-wheel drive. This is the 2025 Volkswagen ID.Buzz First Edition. What's it like? Buckle up, my friends. Let's go for a drive. I'm your host, Brian Makse Racer, lover of driving fast, fun things, and on this channel, you get reviews for drivers from drivers. Now, this ID.Buzz has to be one of the most hotly anticipated and interesting vehicles for the 2025 model year. That is for sure, and it is a unique thing. Before we get into what it's like to drive, let's have a look at it in a little more depth. As completely distinctive as this ID.Buzz is, it actually uses Volkswagen's current EV architecture. This is a first edition, which means it's 4Motion, which means it's got a motor at each axle and combined to make 335 horsepower and 413 pounds of torque. Battery size is 86 kilowatt hours. Range is said to be 231 miles or 377 kilometers for this particular model. And max charge rate is 200 kilowatts. The all-wheel drive uses electronic torque vectoring, so we'll see how that goes. Steering is electrically assisted. Suspension's based around McPherson struts at the front, multi-link at the rear. Now for brakes, this is interesting. Conventional discs at the front and drums at the rear, just like the old one. Wheels and tires are 20s with 235 wide at the front, 265 wide tires at the rear. Towing capacity is 3,500 pounds and curb weight of this big ID.Buzz is 6,261 pounds. Here's what living with a Viofo A229 Plus is like in the real world, and unlike your uncle's dash cam they got free with his flip phone, this one's actually useful. The 2K resolution with HDR means whether you're documenting a canyon run or catching the plate to the guy who thinks your bumper is a parking sensor, everything's crystal clear. The dual Sony sensors handle light transitions better than most factory auto high beams. If you get the hardwire kit, parking mode is like having a security detail for your car. The buffered recording means it captures 15 seconds before and 30 seconds after any event. So you'll actually see who left that note saying sorry with no contact info. Voice control means there's no fumbling with buttons when you want to capture something interesting that's happened. Just say lock video and that Mustang's failed Cars and Coffee exit is captured for posterity. Did you know that 80% of you are not subscribed? Yes, it's true. 80% of you are not subscribed. I checked the data. So if you like the content on this channel, do me a solid, hit that subscribe button, make sure you like this, and if you want to support the channel, please hit up our merch store. Links here, links below, lots of great stuff for driving enthusiasts like us, including our very popular line of Save the Manuals merch. Now back to your regularly scheduled episode. Once you're in the driver's seat, this driver interface is pretty conventional, that's for sure. A lot of similarities between this ID.Buzz and the ID.4 we drove recently. But the thing is, this thing is so high off the ground, you've got to climb up into it. I think I'm at the perfectly wrong height to get into this thing. I'm maybe 5'10" on a good day, and it's kind of awkward to climb into this. I think if I were taller, I could just step in. If I were shorter, well, I could use the door sill as a step to climb up into this thing. But at my height, it seems a little awkward. Once I'm here, however, I'm very happy. Excellent visibility, great interface to the steering wheel and to the pedals. Sure, the play and pause pedals are kind of cool, but I think it's a bit of a missed opportunity. They should have made the horn play Grateful Dead tunes. Steering wheel's fantastic shape, at least when your hands are at 9 and 3 where they should be. It does have a flat bottom bit. Don't know why they do that, but lots of adjustment in the steering column, and the seat very, very comfortable. And this is a first edition, and that means this is fully equipped. What that means for this driver's seat is that it's heated, it's cooled, and it's got a massaging function as well. So you do have all the bells and whistles, and I do appreciate the fact that this does have a massaging seat, because on longer distance drives, it's quite refreshing. The seat itself is highly adjustable, and what I do appreciate is the extendable thigh support. That's always nice in a vehicle you're going to spend some time in, and there's a modest amount of bolstering. Not that this ID.Buzz can corner with any seriousness, but there's a decent amount of support to keep you well placed in the seat, and certainly it's very comfortable. What I like about this instrument cluster is that it's tiny. It has just the information that you need when you're driving. There is a heads-up display on this first edition, and this kind of instrumentation is exactly what I'm looking for in a modern car. It's very clean, very simple, very straightforward. The infotainment system, however, is a little bit different. There's some complexity to it. It's not overly complex. The user interface, pretty straightforward, and for the most part works just fine. I use it on Apple CarPlay, and I'm very happy with it that way. And overall, it's not too difficult to deal with this system. However, keep in mind that with modern infotainment system, a lot of controls are in here. So for example, the climate controls are all contained in this screen, whether you like it or not. In terms of visibility, well, that's a win. You're seated high off the ground, lots of tall glass in every direction. When you're parking, there are sensors and cameras, and which you do need because this is a fairly large vehicle. So you do need those sensors and cameras when you're parking this thing. Now, in terms of spaciousness, they should have just called this a bus. It is enormous in here. It probably has the greatest interior volume of any vehicle I've driven ever. It's huge in here. Everybody in each one of the 6 seats in this ID.Buzz first edition is very comfortable. Lots of space, some amenities. I think there's USB-C ports at every seat, so you and your passengers are going to be comfortable and looked after. And one of the things I do have to say is, however they've managed it here with this ID.Buzz, the interior heats up quickly. Not just the seat and the steering wheel, because both of those are heated, but this interior does heat up quickly as well, making sure that you and your passengers are very comfortable. This roof can go from clear to opaque faster than you can say, far out, man. The original bus did 0 to 60 eventually. This one does it in about 6.5 seconds. That's quick enough. It's quicker than maybe it should be given its size, but it's quick enough to keep up with traffic, accelerate up to highway speeds, and because it's electric, it is immediately responsive. There is some electronic torque vectoring here for the all-wheel drive system, and all I can say in that regard is that the torque vectoring seems to be fully resolved. There is no unwanted behavior from torque delivery from any of the 4 wheels or each axle. It seems to deliver power exactly the way I wanted. Not that you really want to drive this in any enthusiastic kind of situations, which we'll get into in a little bit, but at least the torque vectoring works, and you do feel like this is sure-footed in any kind of traction condition. It's no surprise that you do feel the mass of this ID.Buzz under acceleration, but it's still quick enough, and it's quite happy at highway speeds. Of course, it's electric, so it's fairly silent in here. We are on some winter tires, so there's maybe a little bit extra road noise, but wind noise is at an absolute minimum. But overall, it works very well on the highway and day-to-day driving. It's nearly silent. Plus, you can charge this faster than the original bus leaked oil, and that's saying something. When I parked this near a Tesla supercharger the other day, I heard a Tesla owner say that this was cultural appropriation. The original bus had a speedometer, a fuel gauge, and a working clock if you were lucky. This one has more computing power than NASA used to reach the moon. The irony of putting space-age tech in the official vehicle of people who question whether the moon landing was real is not lost on me. But hey, when we're stuck in traffic, at least we can ask the voice assistant, what's the meaning of life? In terms of handling, this ID.Buzz has it. No, just kidding. This thing is enormous. You do have to pay attention to the length of this thing as well as the wheelbase. It's certainly not an urban car, at least hasn't worked for me in downtown Toronto, and it has been a bit of a challenge to maneuver through the city as well as park this thing. It is much happier in a suburban or rural environment where you do have more space, and in those environments, it works just fine. In that kind of environment, you'll be happy, but in an urban environment, this is like driving a 3/4 ton or a 1 ton full-size pickup. It is quite big. It's not necessarily that wide, does fit into parking spots, but it is quite long, and that does make it challenging. Certainly in downtown Toronto, if you got to park it in an underground parking lot, well, you have to take its height into consideration as well. Steering's well weighted. It's reasonably strong on center, direct, precise, and all of that, but it is definitely not driver-oriented. I like something a little bit quicker. I understand why they do this. This is going to suit most ID.Buzz owners, that's for sure, but as someone who does like to drive with some enthusiasm, I'd like maybe a little quicker steering, but not going to complain too much. The thing is, because it's so long and it's got such a long wheelbase, steering inputs, even after spending a week in this thing, still are requiring some adjustment in my brain. I think I'm almost there, but you're going to have to get used to this ID.Buzz if you're coming from something else that's maybe not even close to the size. If you're coming to an ID.Buzz from a mid-size crossover, remember that you're going to have to pay attention to the steering. With the brakes, I'm still astonished that there are drum brakes on the back. It's easy to say that that's a bit of a throwback to the original bus, but in this case, because you do have regenerative braking at both axles, maybe you kind of only need disc brakes on the front. It's an interesting choice, but alas, here we are. In 2025, I'm driving a vehicle that has drum brakes on the back, and I can't remember the last time I drove anything with drum brakes. And don't mistake this as any kind of complaint, because the brakes are strong. They work exactly as they should. I can drive this thing for the most part on one pedal operation without having to get onto that brake pedal. It's only in situations where I do have to slow down in a hurry, requires me to jump on the brake pedal where I really need to get on that brake pedal. Brakes work just fine. There's lots of confidence in the brake pedal. I've never engaged ABS. Somebody asked me why they kept the drum brakes in the back, and I said, I guess hippies need some tradition too. In terms of ride and handling, the suspension setup is definitely tuned for comfort, and that's passenger comfort more than driving engagement, that's for sure, but it's very comfortable in here. The long wheelbase kind of smooths out the ride overall, and I will say that body and wheel control is excellent, and that's kind of difficult to do, especially in a vehicle that weighs over 6,000 pounds. Now, in the corners, however, there's a bit of body roll, there's not much chassis feel, there's not much steering feel. The only control I have a lot of confidence in when it comes to the corners is that brake pedal, and what this says to me is that this ID.Buzz is not meant for enthusiastic cornering. It's meant for cruising and enjoying yourself, whether it's over shorter or longer distances. And in 2025, at least, these are going to be a welcome sight on the road, because everywhere I've gone with this thing, it's attracted tons of attention. People have been taking photos of it. They've stopped to ask me questions. And I think I will have to say that the reaction from the general public has been worse or better than when I'm driving things like supercars, Lamborghinis, for example. Lots of people just had to stop and talk to me about this ID.Buzz, and I was very surprised with that, but it seems like there's a lot of interest from a lot of people in this ID.Buzz. And it's no surprise that it's popular with the general public. It is iconic. It is part of popular culture, but Volkswagen's been teasing this redo of the bus for what seems to be about 20 years, and now it's here, and it definitely makes a statement. It's one of the most unique things on the road, and definitely makes a statement everywhere you go. How do you spec yours? Well, this is an easy question to answer for a couple of reasons that we'll get into momentarily. What you are looking at is candy white and cabana blue with a cognac synthetic leather interior, which you can't get in the United States. In the US, these first editions come in just one specification. Your choice is simply color. In Canada, you can add some options like the roof and the candy white paint. In the US, base price and as tested is exactly the same. It's $69,995. $82,995. In Canada, base price is $82,995, and as tested, you're looking at $86,495, and these prices are before freight, local taxes, and incentives. In terms of speccing yours, I think it's simply a matter of choosing colors that will paint a smile on your face. But the elephant in the showroom is whether you can get one of these, and I suspect they're going to be sold out for several months, if not longer. And if that's the case, hopefully you've got one on order, and if you don't, well, be prepared to pay well over MSRP to get your hands on one of these very, very soon. Now let's talk about the elephant in the showroom for just a second. This is not inexpensive. It's a lot of money for something with a VW badge, but think of it this way. The original bus is now selling for over six figures at Barrett-Jackson. At least this one comes with working air conditioning and doesn't require a mechanical engineering degree to keep it running. Plus, the first edition badge means you can tell people you're not just buying a car, you're investing in automotive history, which sounds a heck of a lot better than I spent my kids' college fund on a hippie electric van. My verdict? Well, here's the thing. Volkswagen has been teasing the idea of a modern bus for quite some time, but in the case of this ID.Buzz, they didn't just phone it in and build another electric. They've built a bridge between two different eras. Yes, the first edition isn't cheap, and sure, there are more practical EVs out there. Heck, you can even go with a regular ID.4 if you wanted. But that completely misses the point. The ID.Buzz isn't trying to be the most practical choice. It seems to be aiming to be the most soulful one. And based on my experience, is a vehicle that makes you smile as well as passersby smile every time you see this thing. It starts conversations anytime you stop. And to me, that somehow feels both a little modern and nostalgic. People are so curious about this thing. It's astonishing. From air-cooled engines to liquid-cooled batteries and hippie culture to high-tech family hauler, the ID.Buzz still manages to honor its past. And that's what makes this ID.Buzz special. It's not just an electric van. It's not a retro throwback, and it's certainly not a luxury crossover. It's kind of like a time machine that lets you revisit the attitude of the original bus with the technology of 2025. Thanks for hanging out with me today and having a look at this 2025 Volkswagen ID.Buzz First Edition. Hope you liked this episode, and if you did, you're not new, you know what to do. Smash the subscribe button, turn on your notifications, like this, and as always, sharing is caring. So please share this with your friends, especially on Reddit, because on Reddit, they really need to see reviews for drivers from drivers. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments below. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And if you want to support the channel, please hit up our merch store. Links here, links below. Lots of great stuff for driving enthusiasts like us, including our very popular line of Save the Manuals merch. And yes, in this part of the world, Volkswagen is still making manuals. Thanks, Volkswagen. Anyway, thanks again for watching. We'll see you again next time. And remember, cars don't understeer by themselves, not even Volkswagen ID.Buzzes. And since you've hung around this long, well, have a look at one of my favorite modern Volkswagens. That is the Golf R with a manual transmission. And 2024 was the last year of the manual gearbox in the Golf R. We really love that car. Hope you liked that episode. See you again next time.